So today I am replacing my radiator. I'm not going to do a how-to on it. I thought about it, but I just need to get this done and out of the way. And in addition to doing the radiator, I am also going to do a complete flush on this thing and also change out the thermostat. So about a year and a half ago, I had actually replaced this radiator, and I replaced it from, I don't know, one of the local auto parts stores here. It happened fast. I was traveling the next day. I didn't have a choice but to buy whatever I could get my hands on. So it was just a basic cheap one, and it's now leaking. It's not coming from the hoses. It's not coming from the engine block or anything like that. I've pinpointed it down to one of the corners of the radiator. So for that reason, I'm ripping it out. That's where I'm at today. The last time I did this, it should have been a couple of hours, and it took me probably at least 4 hours. For the life of me, I could not get the transmission cooler line off. It has one of those clips that you need to buy, those special plastic things that go around the hose. You push in and it's supposed to separate. I could not get that thing off. I even cut it off at the radiator so that I could work with it easier, and I still couldn't do it until I made my own. Those little worm gear clamps. I cut one of those to size around the hose, stuck that in there, and it happened to pop out, but it was a fiasco. I'm hoping I don't have to go through the same thing again today, but we'll see. So let me show you what I got, where I'm at, and I need to start working on this thing. So I'm going to also replace the cap with another cap since I've never done that, and then my thermostat seal as well, or gasket, as well as the thermostat. And then over here is the radiator. Everything seems to check out, so that should go in without much of a problem. You can see, well, you can't really see it that well, but radiator fluid, the first time it blew, it was all over the hood, it was all over the engine, and since then, even though I've kept it full, it just basically drips and sprays all over my wheel well on the passenger side. So it's time that this needs to get done. And this is a mess. I know that. I still haven't cleaned it from my trip. And thermostat housing's looking pretty rough. I should have bought another one of these, but I didn't think far enough ahead, so I'm going to end up having to use this. I'll clean this up good and clean it out since I don't want to leave gunk in there. But that's where I'm at. You can see the drips just from sitting here. That's actually nothing compared to what it usually does. And I've got a bucket to try to catch as much as I can of the radiator fluid, but I really need to get at this. So now it's just time to get going and get this job over with. All right, so I got the radiator out. It was easier than I thought it would be, with the exception of the cooler line. I ended up kinking it by twisting it, the upper one. So I've got a kink in there, a bit more than I'm comfortable with, so that is going to have to get replaced in the future. I just looked to see if I could get one quick, and I can't, so it's easy enough to replace with the radiator back in. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it all back together and hope for the best on that. Like I said, it's kinked, but it's not cut off. Anyway, the lower line came off a lot easier than I thought it would, a lot easier than last time. I'm hoping it snaps back on just as easy. If not, that could be a little bit of work. I've got the thermostat housing out. Took the die grinder and put on a Scotch-Brite pad and cleaned that off real good. Got a rag in there so all the crap won't go inside there, even though I am going to flush it. And then here is the housing. I cleaned that up a bit, and then also cleaned off the surface area to get the old gasket off, which was on there pretty good. It was a combination of the Scotch-Brite pad and a razor blade. And so now I've got to run this thing full of water. I went ahead and, as I just showed you here, I put plastic bags with twist ties around them because I don't want water getting into my cooler lines, oil cooler lines. So I did that. And now it's just a matter of flushing this out. I've checked all my hoses and they all seem to be pretty good, but these hoses are relatively new. I think I replaced them a year and a half ago when I did it last time. And then I always start with gloves, and at one point usually rip off the gloves and end up with dirty hands, which is no big deal. I don't know why I even bother sometimes. And now I need to roll this thing back, and I'm going to use my garden hose to clean this out in the driveway and not do it in here because it is going to be a huge mess. All right, so the whole thing is flushed in each direction through the heater core, through the water pump, out through the lower hose, and the upper hose already took off. Even did the reservoir, so that's completely clean. So everything is running really clear when I run the water through it, and then I followed it up with air to blow out all the water that I could from every location, even outside of the block, or from inside the block, when I had the housing off before I put that back on. So I'm ready to roll this thing back in. You saw me roll it out. Now yesterday I did test this and rolled this all the way without me being on the brake, and it will not hit the front of my garage. If I let it roll from here, it'll barely make it. So this is going to be kind of interesting. Need to put the hood back down and see if I can't get this thing to roll far enough where I only have to push it a couple more feet to get it back into place. Well, that was a comedy of errors. Took a lot longer than it should have, but everything is back together. I'm going to add fluid into the upper hose that goes into the core and fill it up partly that way, and then the rest of the way I will fill it up over here. So that is the plan. Everything's back together and it should work properly. The transmission oil cooler line took a lot longer than it should have, but it's back in. So now I just need to add fluid, take it for a test run, and clean this place up. So that wasn't a lot of fun, especially since it wasn't something that I was planning on doing. It wasn't on my list of things to do when I returned. I'm glad this happened here and not on the road. I could have actually done this on somebody's driveway or some remote area if I absolutely needed to, with the tools that I had if I was still out there, but luckily I wasn't. So now I have a new thermostat on there. Everything's cleaned up, everything's running really clear, and so now that's out of the way. I don't have any leak strips or anything, but that's at least done, and it took a lot longer than it should because of the comedy of errors. I was always dropping something, or something wasn't going right, or I started to strip a screw. Go ahead and leave your comments about anything that you saw, especially with my cold air intake being so dirty, as well as the engine bay just being a complete disaster. That is really in bad shape, I know. Just a couple of more things that are going to go on the list. But anyway, thank you for watching. Feel free to leave your comments below, and I'll talk to you next time.